works at Google and works in the TensorFlow team, I guess. So he tweeted this a few days ago saying JavaScript made it into space. Well, SpaceX launched their mission and they used JavaScript in creating this control panel kind of thing using JavaScript. They used Chromium, that's the project on which the Chrome browser is created, and they created that. So JavaScript is not only used all around the world but now also in space. Another reason being, if you look at this Google Trends page, and if you look at the worldwide trends of Node.js, Node.js was created around 2009 or 10, and since that time, if you see, Node.js has a upward trend. Comparing that with other languages like PHP or Java, PHP and Java are almost 25 to 30 years old now. They've been here since the web started. We can say that. But as you can see, there is like a constant downward trend. They are still in use, very popular. I'm not saying they're not used at all, but Node.js being a new recent technology, hardly 10 years old, and we are seeing a constant upward trend. But why, what's the reason behind this? Well, if you look at this page, it's a page hosted on Debian.net. Debian is a very popular Linux operating system used in many servers worldwide. Linux again is one of the best choices for developers for um, as a web server, as a server in general. So this is, the page is called the Computer Language Benchmark Scheme, which basically is where they've taken a bunch of algorithms and implemented those algorithms in different languages and then compared the results. So as you can see, you have, so pretty much every language that is in use today, the popular ones, they've implemented a bunch of algorithms and then compared the results. You will find the results for Node.js under JavaScript. So if you compare it with Java, Java is a compiled language, and Node.js is interpreted language. So Node.js, as you can see, is a winner in two of the algorithms. Pretty close in some of the others. Java is a winner here and here, but the results are pretty close. And I would say, yeah, in one or two cases, the margin is high, which is expected. Java being a compiled language. But if you compare it with, let's say, PHP, well, PHP scores well in two algorithms, but then in rest of the others, Node.js is the winner, and margin is quite high. Well, a lot higher in some of the algorithms. Another comparison which we should do is with Python. Okay, so Python is winner in like two cases, but then in others, Node.js is the winner. And as you can see, with a lot of winner with a lot of margin, quite a lot of margin. Okay, so we know Node.js is fast, and if you have watched the first two lectures in this series, you would know it's mainly because of the asynchronous nature and the non-blocking IO. The non-blocking IO being the main thing due to which Ryan Dell, the creator of Node.js, did create Node.js. Okay, and because it's so fast, and because of its asynchronous nature and non-blocking IO, it's used by a lot of companies. Companies like, so the first example I'll like to show you is Netflix, because everybody knows Netflix around the world today. I read in some blog post that around 20 to 25% of all the traffic on the internet today is Netflix, because they stream like HD or 4K video, web series, movies, and people watch it all the time. So they use Node.js in their technology stack. And this is their official blog, the Netflix tech blog. If you search for the term Node, you would find their blog posts with Node, and they've written a a bunch of articles how they've scaled it, how they are using it. You know, so if you're interested, you can read. Other companies that use Netflix, sorry, they who use Node are PayPal, there's GoDaddy, many companies these days, big and small. Also, if you also NASA uses it. And if you search for this term, OpenJSF NASA Node case study, OpenJSF means Open JavaScript Foundation. You'll get this first link. It's a PDF where they've given a case study of how NASA used Node.js for accessing some spacesuit data for astronauts. So they'll explain the scenario how there was once where this astronaut in space faced a life and death situation, and to avoid that happening from in the future, they used Node.js to access some data, so that you know uh, the data transfer and everything, the speeds is reduced, and they can get the data instantly. Okay, and they've even listed their main reasons of why Node.js. First being the relative ease of developing data transfer applications with JavaScript, and the familiarity across the organization with the programming language, which is also like a pretty good reason. Many web developers, they do know JavaScript already, because there is a high chance they did some front end work. Okay, so many, if anybody is into web development, chances are very high that they would know JavaScript. Okay, Node.js is asynchronous event loop and IO operations make it perfect solution for a cloud-based DB system that sees queries from dozens of users who need data immediately. So again, the asynchronous IO, that's non-blocking IO, which I talked about, and the event loop. Event loop we understood in our previous sessions. Okay, and again, and one more reason, the Node.js package manager, the npm, pairs incredibly well with Docker. Docker is again a very popular tool these days, used for development and deployment. Um, so yeah, you can read this in detail. It's a nice case study. Okay, so moving on. So a word about OdinSchool. OdinSchool is a technology upskilling platform. We help you continuously acquire new skills. So stay skilled and stay ahead. A word about me. Hi guys, my name is Vijay Makhija. I started my career in around 2010. Initially, I started mainly with PHP based web development. I did some core PHP, CodeIgniter. I also worked on e-commerce platforms like WordPress, Magento. Over the past few years, I've moved on to more JavaScript based development, both front end and back end. In the earlier days, in the front end, I did use jQuery, Bootstrap. Bootstrap is still going strong. jQuery is still used, but uh, I've tried my hands on React. React is the most experience that I have. Apart from React, I've tried my hands on some small Vue and Angular projects. Backend, I've used Node, Express, and apart from web development, I've had a chance to work on Chrome extensions and chatbots. Well, enough about me. Let's start. Well, the agenda for today is to actually create a tool like Json Server, but for that we'll cover a small topic before that. We'll try and understand how command line arguments work, and then we'll move on to our hands-on project. So command line arguments. So you would have seen this in our last session as well. How do we create a project and install Express? So if you notice, so mkdir is a command. If you're using Windows, make directory, and then you pass in the name of the directory. Okay, so mkdir space my app. Cd again is a command to change the directory. Cd space my app. npm space init, npm space install space express. Whenever you're typing a command, okay, any command, whether it's in Linux, Mac, or Windows, you are using command line arguments. Okay, so the first word usually is the command itself, and then the all the next subsequent words like this install or express, or there could be install -g or -save or save dev. All those are command line arguments. So those are basically arguments that you pass to the command. Okay, and we can use them in our application as well. We can use them in Node. Okay, so how do we use that? If you search for Node command line arguments, open the first link from nodejs.org. So you see it's pretty easy. Okay, uh, so let's say you create a file called argv.js. Okay, and so running that file is pretty easy, node space argv.js. But let's say if you type in more words after that, like 1 2 3 4 5, using this process.argv, okay, you can access all of those words that you actually typed in the command. Okay, the first one being node itself, second one being the full path to the file in which your code is, and then the so for us, for developers, the actual command line arguments start at the 0 1 second index number 2. Okay, and what is this process dot a? Well, process is like a built-in module in Node which gives you this property. So let's try it out and then we'll continue. Sorry. I'll just type one line. Okay, past lectures, in the past sessions, I've been using the tool called Hyper, which was created using these web technologies. If you don't like that, another option is CMDER, okay, which is also a good tool. CMDER, okay, and resembles kind of Unix based environment. So for Linux users, it would be nicer. Also / is work here. Okay. Okay, so let's run this file. So there you go. So we get an array. So process.argv is an array. In the first index, we get the full path to node.exe. See, because it's Windows, you even get, the backslash, the double backslash, it escaped. Second argument is the full path, absolute path to the file itself in which the code is. Okay, let's try some things like, oops, sorry, I pressed enter. Okay, what if you want to pass in an argument which has a space in it? So just put them in double quotes. So ABC, then DEF space GHI and JKL. Let's see if it works. Yes, it does work. So as simple as that. Okay, so this is basically how you use command line arguments in Node. Okay. All right. So now what are we trying to create today? So search for npm space Json Server. So it's an npm package. What does it let you do? So let's install it first. Okay, install the JSON and the -g flag. So this command line argument installs this npm module globally. So globally in the sense mm, in your system, in your PC, and you can use it from wherever you want. Okay, so let's install this. Npm install -g Json Server. What after that, we'll create a db.json file, okay, with some data. So I'll copy this, and I paste the data. So what does it have? So in case you don't know what JSON is, okay, till now, it's basically a way to represent data. Okay, you can create a JSON file simply by give any file name .json. That, and what can a JSON file have? Well, it can basically have JavaScript objects. Okay, so what are these so this is the official site for JSON, json.org. What can the JSON file have? It's supposed to have an object. So start with a curly bracket, end with a curly bracket. Okay, then what? So it can have property colon value. Okay, let me do that for you. So I'll remove this for now. This is valid JSON. Okay, even this empty object. The property name can be anything, and you can give it any kind of value. So this is string. I can give it a number. Okay, it can be a boolean. It can be, I think null is a, yep. So boolean, null, string, number, object, and array. Okay, so another object inside this is allowed, and the array is allowed. Okay, so string, number can be like in JavaScript, both of these are just numbers. A boolean, true or false, null, again an object, and this object again can have all this. So again it's object, and array of any kind of values. Okay, so that's basically what they are trying to say. And again, these are like basic rules of escaping. So backward slash double quote if you want to have your value to have double quotes, because we are a string, which again if it needs double quotes, you just do backward slash double quotes, which is common for all languages. So everything they have explained in a nice diagram. Okay, so this is basically JSON. So what does Json Server do? I'll copy this now. I'll remove this, I'll paste it. So as you can see, we have, so in this object, we have mainly three properties: posts, comments, and profile. Posts is an array, comments is an array, profile is an object. Posts has one object, and that object has three properties: ID, title, author. Comments again has an object with ID, body, and post ID. Okay, and profile is an object with just one property. Is it installed? Yep, it's installed. So what does this do? Let me run this. Json Server, watch db.json. So I'll paste this. So now Json Server as a command can run anywhere in your OS. Okay, so a nice high. I think they've used chalk for this. Loading db.json done, and they have, so whatever the top level properties were, top level meaning inside this object, the properties that come inside immediately inside this object: posts, comments, profile. Name is not a top level property in this object. It comes under profile. Okay, so top level are three: posts, comments, profile. Okay, so it created three paths for me: posts, comments, profile. Let's open those. Posts. Okay, let me zoom that for you. Okay, posts, comments, and profile. Great. So it basically reads that data from that JSON file and then gives us the result. So it's like a simple what do you say, REST API. Okay, if I just open the root or the home page, so it opens a nice Json Server home page. You are successfully running Json Server. It lists all the resources. It also tells us that, hey, this is 1x, meaning it has like one object. I think it's giving me the count. Profile is an object. To access and modify the resources, you can use any HTTP method. So get, post, put, patch, delete options. Okay, so these are basically the HTTP methods. Get, post, we know. Put, patch, delete options. Delete is used for deleting anything. So these are basically the methods that people usually use in the REST APIs. Okay, these are HTTP methods in general. Okay, so what we'll try to do is create a simpler version of Json Server. Okay, and we'll basically use get, and first try and implement the get part, get the data, and then we'll see what we can do next. Okay, it also console logs whatever the requests we are making, so that's nice as well. All right, so now you know what we are trying to do. So close this. So first things first, we will install Express and start with that. So npm init, npm install Express. Npm init. Okay, npm install Express. So we got the package.json file. I'll add one more over here for now. Okay, so we have Express installed. Now what? We start coding basically. So what is our end goal? So what we want to do is, this is how we run our application, right? So node space index.js. What we want to be able to do is basically, if right now we'll take the db.json directly that we have, but it would be better if we can pass in the uh, name of the file in an argument. So something like this. Even better would be if we can pass in the name or the path of the file. Something like, let's say if it's in a directory like, okay, so that's one thing. So pass in the name of the file in the command line argument. Read the file. Okay, so step 2 would be read the JSON file, get all the top level properties. Okay, so get all the top level properties, meaning the posts, comments, profile. Create routes for those top level properties. So what we want is, so using Express, we want that our application URL, so for example 127.0.0.1:3000 should work. Okay, create routes and return JSON for the corresponding route. Okay, so when the user opens /posts, we want the data that is inside the posts, okay, the whole array to be given to the user. Okay, so only return that. Okay, also we would want that this should work. Okay, /post ? Json server has a lot of, it's like a full-fledged REST API for just one JSON file. It allows all the standard CRUD operations: create, read, update, delete. Okay, our goal is to create a simpler version of that. Let's see what we can achieve. Okay, so something like this should work, wherein I pass in $ID equal to 1, which will only return this object. Okay, if it exists. If not, just we can return a blank array or something like that, or just nothing, empty string. Okay, so URL params should work. Okay, so this is our goal for now. I'll just create a goal.js file and paste it over here and remove this from index. Okay, let's start with our hello world, and then we'll start from there. So we have this Express. Okay, let's see if everything works fine. In a cookery show, I had heard a chef saying the key to becoming a good chef is always keep tasting. So like when you're preparing your food, in between always keep tasting. To be a good programmer, always keep testing. All right, so node index.js starts listening. Okay, so our server is working. Great. Now what do we need first? We need first to get the name of the file from command line arguments and then read that. Okay, so what do we need for that? We need the fs module, the file system module, right? Now so assuming user would give us the correct file name. Okay, so in 0 index is node, in index 1 is the path to this file. Okay, so in index 2 would be our file name. Okay, and then we want to read that file. So fs dot read file. Okay, first we'll pass in the name and then have the okay. Let's see if this works. I'll just console log the data. Okay, so if I run it without passing a file name, the server doesn't start, we get an error, which is fine. Okay, yeah, so it's an error from the fs utils. All right, you can add a try catch over here, so you can show a message. We'll go slow, step by step. Just say error reading file. Okay, and if you want, you can also echo the exception object along with it. All right, anyways, just let's continue. Now let me try and pass in the file name. It works. Okay, it works. We just need to add a toString to the data. There you go, we are getting the data of the file. So we have the data of the file. Now what's the next step in the goal? Read the JSON file, get all the top level properties. Okay, so what the top level properties? So how do we do that? Now if you open the, so two things. First, if you search for MDN array, so Mozilla Developers Network, the site, so you'll see there are a bunch of methods in the array object. Okay, and second thing, MDN string methods. Open that link, you'll see a bunch of string methods. No matter which language you're learning, PHP, Java, always learn to deal with data. Obviously any application you're making, REST API, front end, back end, this, that, whatever, in the end it's always there's some data. You need to work on it, create, read, update, delete. If it's a database, show it to the user, send this there, send this, something like that. So always learn to deal with data, and for that, one of the most important methods would be the string methods and array methods. Okay, so we will be needing some of these. Another thing, now our data is JSON data, so to deal with that, MDN Json Parse. All right, so there are a bunch of methods to deal with JSON as well. Okay, so basic two methods are json.parse and then json.stringify. Json.parse, if you pass in a string to that, it will give you the JSON object. Okay, so there's parse and stringify. Let me show you an example. Also things like these, the basic the JavaScript and string methods, you can even try it out in the console. Just press F12 to open the console. So json.parse, I'll pass in a string. Okay, so I just passed in a blank string and it says, okay, some syntax error, unexpected end of JSON input, basically, which means the string that I passed is not valid JSON. Okay, so it throws an exception at that place. If I just pass in empty brackets, yes, that's fine. It gives us a object, so it returns an object. Okay, and if you see O is an object. Okay, similarly, if I pass in a property, okay, why is there a problem? Because again, as per JSON rules, the property names should be strings. Okay, let me see if do single quotes work. Nope. So it's strict in parsing. The string should have the property name should be string with double quotes. Okay, that's more like it. Okay, now we have O as an object, so now you know. Okay, and the opposite method of Json parse is Json Stringify, and if you pass in an object like this, a JavaScript object, it will give you the string for that. Okay, but if in case there is an error, you see there's an exception is thrown. So let's parse the data we read from the file as JSON, and in case there is an issue, we'll say console log error reading or parsing file. I'll just console log the object as well. Yep, we get the console log. All right, now top level properties, how to get those? Okay, so just like array and string, so if you see array and string, both of them are part of standard built-in objects. Let me open that. There are times where you might need to go through like the definitions of all those methods and see which method you can use, and there are some which are pretty common to understand. For example, string.search, replace, index of. So these are, even by their name, pretty easy to understand what they might be doing. But now, in case like this, there are times where you might need to go through the documentation. Okay, all right. So okay, we have the functions. All right, fundamental objects. So if you go to the object called object with a capital O, okay, and there are a bunch of methods in the object called object capital O, assign, create, entries. There is this method called object.keys, returns an array containing the names of all the given object's own enumerable string properties. Meaning, if you have an object with three properties A, B, C, no matter what the value is, object.keys would give you A, B, C as an array. As simple as that. Well, what if we have, is this editable over here? Oh yeah, oh pretty nice. All right, so what if we have something like this? So what if we have a property which whose value is an object, and inside again we have properties. What does it do? Still ABC, great. So this is exactly what we need. Okay, now I knew this already, but in case you didn't know this, you would have to like find things. Okay, or you can Google it, but then you should know what to search. Okay, better you go through these standard built-in objects. You go through, just see, just browse through the methods in the object, in array object, in string object, and then you might remember that, aha, I had read this method, this can be done like this. All right, so Okay, so we have top level props. Let's see if it works. I'll stop listening for now. Oh. So we'll know directly if things are working or not. Nope, error in case of this. Okay, we get posts, comments, profile. Great. Now what? The next goal is create routes for those top level props. Nice. Okay, so basically what we want is something like this. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put the variables here on top. Okay, so I can access them outside the function as well once they are set. I'll create a function, something like get top level props. Okay, create routes. Also, let me write a function like start server. Okay, so top level props, start server, create routes. Okay, start server, create routes, pass in the top level props, pass in the file object over here. All right. Now we'll get the routes over here. So I'll just run a loop over them. And basically this is our route name basically. So forward slash and then top level props. So this array would have uh, an array like this. Okay, and we can so okay, route name, let me pass it over here. All right, This is not the HTTP module that we are using. We are using Express, and in the Express, in the request object, we have uh, properties like this. Uh, we have a request.route property. We have params query. Okay, we have properties like these. So I'll just console log them. All right. So let's try this. Okay, I'll okay, node index.json, db.json. Cannot get / because we have not defined a route. Okay, posts, yes, it works. Comments, it works. Profile, it works. And what about a random string? No. So we get a default 404 page for that. Okay, so now I think we'll need a top level props. I'll keep it in capital so we'll know it's like in the global scope. We'll also create a route. So where are we in our goal? Get all the top level properties. Yes, create routes for those top level properties, but we'll create a home route as well. Okay. We'll console log the route name. The port is 3000. All right. So we'll console log something like this. Okay. String to send back to the browser. Or we can use the short syntax plus equal to. Once we have the string ready, we just send it. You can add a, this will be sent to the browser, so you can also send like HTML. Okay. All right. I'll add a BR tag in the end. Okay. Let's start again. Okay, so we get the console log saying posts, comments, and profile. Let me open the home route. profile. So what's wrong? Oh yes. Okay, one thing to note over here. It didn't give me undefined or error that route name is not defined. I did not define route before using in this line. Route is defined over here inside this for loop under it. Okay. So how am I able to access route name over here? In JavaScript, when you define a variable using the keyword where, it takes the function scope. Now so actually we would imagine this is the scope, the curly brackets. Well, no. Okay. If the keyword is where, it's function scope. So this line, which function is it inside? The for is inside this function. So route name is available in this whole function. Okay. And yeah, so and this is a callback function. Obviously this function ran after this for loop, and in this for loop the last value that this variable got was profile, and that's what this took, and in the callback function we got this. So but to limit the usage of this variable to this for loop only, use the keyword let is like true scope kind of a keyword. So declaring a variable using the word let would keep that variable within the scope, so within whatever curly brackets it's in, whether it's if, else, a loop, or like even this I, define it like this. I cannot be used now outside this for loop. Okay, so yeah, you do get issues like these all the time in while you're coding anything. Okay. Okay, now we get the correct ones. Okay, we can make this string as a link, and link it to the route. So just pass in the route. Okay, and they would be links. Yep, if I click on this, it opens posts, go back, comments, profile. Great. Now what's the next part that we want to do? Now when so in here, so now as you can see, when we open any route, if you see these console logs, so comments, so right now params and query is empty. Okay, what if I pass like question mark x equal to 1? What does it give? Okay, so params is empty, but query we do get it as an object, so that's nice. Okay, so we'll use that for the search function later. Now, so here what we should be sending instead of hello world, we should be sending, first of all, we should be sending JSON. Okay, because we are sending JSON data, and only that part. So now how do we know here which route is being called? Well, you can't use this, okay, because this is a callback function. By the time this function is called, you would always get the last value of this, so don't use that. So So request dot route dot path gives us the path, okay, but with a forward slash. So in cases like this, first of all, what you can do is you can go through the API reference, okay. API would give you a lot of properties and methods. So in request you have these many properties: app, base URL, body, cookies, fresh, hostname, IP. Request dot method would give you if it's get, post, or whatever. Request dot path gives you the path. Do we like, is it possible to get the path without the forward slash, or do we have to do some coding for that? Query request dot route. Route actually gives us a big object with a lot of things. So we have path directly under request as well. Well, it's okay. We'll remove the forward slash. So how to do that? String methods. What string method do we use? That is slice. Okay, that's a name I think we can use. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Slice the lazy dog. What if we do slice one? This is nice. We can try it over here directly. String.slice1 run he. So if I put slash posts run, I get posts. Great. So this is what we want. String.slice and pass in the we'll use okay, request dot path dot slice one. So that's the key that we want to use. So this would give us either posts or comments or profile. Now we want to now we'll need the file data. So where is the file data? Actually it's in this object. So that is why what I'll do is I'll keep a top level props and a file object. I'll assign. So one thing is sure, only if the file is read, is successful, and Json parse properly, only then we will start the server and then create the routes. So by the time we are here, we know we do have this file object. So where prop name, file object, prop name. So this is actually the JSON that we want to send. Now what if the property doesn't exist? Let's say if the property doesn't exist, the route wouldn't be created. But let's say still in something happened to the file after the user route opened the route, and then we want to make sure that this object has this property. The way to do that, so let's say I define a variable called O. Does it have a value? Nope, it's undefined. What if I try to access some property inside that, like this? It gives an error. Okay, so first of all, now what if I define a property, a variable like this, and then I try, it gives us undefined. Okay, so what I can do is, to be on safer side, now all these things are very important. Okay, you need to understand how variables, data, and objects and arrays work. I'll initialize this as an object to make sure we always get an object in this. Okay, when we are reading the file, when we JSON parse it, if at this line we get some issue, the file object again, so this line won't be executed. We'll move on to the catch block. Okay, So we'll know file object is a object at all times. And this, in case the property doesn't exist, would be undefined. So if not equal to undefined, only then we send a response JSON. Okay, we can take that in a variable. Okay, prop data or data to send, whatever you want. All right. Now, if you want to be extra careful, you can add another if condition like okay, is not equal to undefined. Okay, what else? Can we check if it's an object or not? Well, there is something called type of. MDN type of. If you open type of, okay, type of 42. So just it's like use it like an operator. Type of space 42 blubber true. So type of, what if I have empty object? It gives me an object. Also, if it's an array, it gives me an object. Okay, because arrays are also objects in JavaScript. So we can use type of as well. So if type of file object is an object, and well, if it's an object, it's not undefined. So either one of these conditions. Okay, because type of undefined would be undefined. Okay, so any ways you want. So you can do this extra check as well. Now, in case this condition fails, okay, we need to have an else part and still send some response to the browser, to the user, saying no data or something like that. Okay, we can create an object like that. For example, error object to send. Invalid data or error parsing data, whatever you want to send. If you're creating a REST API, and if you say it's a JSON REST API, make sure you always send JSON. Okay, don't give HTML errors or string errors. Make sure it's always JSON. It's easier for the developer on the receiving end to pass that. Okay, all right, time for action. Let's see if this works. Let's open home, posts. Nice. Comments. Great. We get this as well. Profile. Yep. Now, right now, what we're doing is we're testing a REST API. So let's say if I open network, go to the XHR tab, this will only give me the sorry, we don't need XHR over here. I'm sorry for that, my bad. I'll open this command. So if I open the request and look at the response headers, yes, so the data we are getting is actually application/json. But in case if we are testing REST APIs like this, the tool I would recommend to use is Postman. Okay, again, it's a nice tool, free tool. Started as open source projects. Now it's a huge multi-million-dollar company. It's an Indian company, so even the story is very interesting. Another tool like Postman is Insomnia. Okay, this Insomnia, you can use this as well. if you want. So Postman, I think it would need you to create a login account. So just do that, it's free. Once you have it, you'll see a workspace like this. You can create more workspaces, invite users, just use it as a team so you can share whatever you're testing. If you click on new, so this is what we will be doing. We'll create a new request and test our REST API. But Postman is much more than that. You get much more for testing. They have created many more kinds of APIs for you to test. There are other public APIs that you can test over here. COVID-19 API, again, there's something which you can import and then you can start testing. So there are different categories. Okay. Also, you can look at, for example, if you want to look at Twitter API, so they have it all covered. You open that. Imgur is image sharing site. Auth0, a very popular service for authentication. Zoho, again, a cloud company offering many applications like CRM, documents and stuff. So you should use tools like these. They are free. They'll help you become a better developer. Also expose you to many things going on in the development world today. So in the create new, just the first option, create new request. I'll click on that. So request name, I would say my Json server kind of a thing. Uh, Request and Postman are saved in collection. I would say, okay, my collection, create it. Okay, my Json server, save to my collection. All right. Okay, I'll open a new. I don't know what happened in that. I'll open a new tab from here. Or is it processing? Okay, now I have a collection. Refresh. Okay, I'll delete this one. I'll open this. Here it is. Okay, Odin. Okay, so you'll see a tab like this where you can select the kind of HTTP request you want to make. Okay, we'll mainly use get and post. Enter the URL over here. You can pass in parameters, authorization, headers, body. So a lot of things to test that you can use to test. So what I'll do is I'll pass in this. Okay, and send. So we get data. Okay, it automatically passes JSON. It also supports XML, HTML, text, and auto. If you see it raw, you get it like this. Okay. Cookies, in case there are any, you can view them over here. Headers, these are the response headers. On the top is everything that you send in the request. On the bottom here is everything that you receive. So response headers, we got, okay, powered by Express. Content type is application JSON. Content length, so basically size is 107 bytes. Okay, so things like that. All right, there's much more to this. It's a huge tool. It has so many features. Okay, but we'll use the basic things. So pretty, it'll give you like this. So now what's the next step? Return. So we have reached here. What next? So this should work. Okay, and so now we come to URL parameters. So for example, if I pass in posts question mark id equal to 1 and do a send, it should basically send me only this object. Okay, that's what we want to do. So let's get to it. I'll separate these functions. Create home route. I'll also pass in the top level props over here. Home route, create routes. I'll add this message over here. Okay, route name, we have the port, right? Better to keep the port also as in capital, so whatever variables we have accessible throughout the file, we should keep it capital within the function. So we should have some form of coding standards like that. All right, what next? So parsing the query parameters. So I remember there were two properties, query and params. We can have a look. So request dot query. Oh no, request dot params. Yep. So yep, question mark sort equal to desc would give you. Let's try. I forgot. So I'll just console log over here. Also, it would be a good practice if you like name these request response as maybe in capital or full words, so you would not have another variable named like this. Request dot params and query. Let me restart. All right, let me try. Question mark x equal to 1 and y equal to 2. Let's see what we got. So query, yep, response request dot query it is. So params or URL params, whatever you want. If now, how do we know if it's not empty? One way would be to know, one way would be, so it's an object. How do we know? So one way is to use the object.keys. So an empty object, if you give it to object.keys, would give you an empty array. Or um, we can do Json Stringify and pass in an object and then compare this string with, because you can't compare objects like this, okay, because objects are basically references. It will be true only if the reference is same. So I think the object.keys method is better. So if this dot length is greater than 0, so in case we have parameters, okay, so then the data to send would change. We won't give this. If there are no keys, then we can carry on with our thing. Okay, so we can put our logic inside this block over here. So either you have parameters or not. In case you don't have parameters, you can just do this. All right. Also, a better approach would be to like create a separate function. Let's do that actually. Mm. Okay, param keys dot length greater than 0. Now, if now we want to know, so I passed in over here, let's say x equal to 1 and y equal to 2. Now, do we have the property x in one of its objects or y in one of its objects? Well, we don't know. So okay, let's see. Well, actually what we can do is we shouldn't really care. It's up, so it's for the developer to know which parameters to send or not. So we'll just send maybe let's send empty object or empty array in case the property doesn't exist. So now our first task is like, let's say I have this as an object with me over here, okay, where a equal to, so I have this array. In the 0 index I have an object, and now how do I now let's say I have a variable called id with the value 2. How do I get to this object? Okay, so how do I search through an array? So let's look at the array methods. From is array of concat copy entries every fill. So there's filter might help us, find might help us, find index won't, because again we don't know the index of the object in our index. It can be anything, it's not, we don't know if it would be 1 or 2. Okay, includes, we can have a look at that. Index of join keys, there's array.keys as well. Just let's see what that is. There is map, pop, push pop again is reduce, reverse, shift, slice. Let's look at these methods first. There is filter. Okay, words, we have these words filter if the length is greater than 6. Okay, so we can use this. So this is basically shorter version of the arrow functions. So you pass in a function as a argument in the filter method, and this is the short for return. You don't even need to write the return keyword if it's just one line of logic. Okay, yep, so this is understandable now, in case you haven't seen that syntax. So we can use this, we can get each object over here. All right, so we can use this method, this filter, that is find. Okay, find method returns the value of the first element in the provided array that satisfied the provided testing function. So once this function runs, okay, if the element is greater than 10, so it stops at 12, it won't go further. Over here it would go through all the elements and check each one. Even if first is true, then false, true, false, it would go for everyone. Find would stop at the first one that it finds. So I think filter is better. In what if we have duplicate values? Okay, so I guess filter is better. All right, so let's use this. So now okay, now we have parameters, so it'll come to this if block. Now we'll run a loop over this data. Actually, what we should do is we should initialize data to send over here as an empty object. Okay, all right, now no, we don't need a for loop, we just need to use the filter function. Sorry about that. Filter, we can write arrow function or a simple function as you want. We will get an object over here. Okay, object, and then what we need to check whether object has that property. How do you know if an object has this property? Okay, so object methods, we can refer to object methods. Do we have a method has own property? Okay, either we can check directly like object dot, let's say something, and check if it's undefined or not, or pass it to has own property. Okay, something dot has own property. So which approach is better? You can try it out again. Let's say we have O, which is undefined, and running the method like that or anything would be. So first we need to check if it's undefined or not, and Okay, so if object, so if type of equal to object, and now we'll take in the first parameter. Okay, this is the params. Right, now we need the value as well. Param keys is, so param keys is actually an array. So in case we take this, so if this is params, param keys is actually x and y. Params, all right. So for now we'll only consider the first one. Okay, we won't do id equal to 1, and we can add that later. First we'll do it only for one property. Okay, so let's say only id, or whatever the first one that the user passes. So id, so we'll get x in this in case we have passed x equal to 1, y equal to 2. And in the filter, so we'll check if type of, so in the property data, so this will be the property data, right, which is this. I'll remove some to make it simpler. Okay, so this is the property data, and in the property, in the filter, first we'll check if this is an object. If it is, and object parameter is not undefined, or well, we can directly check, if it's undefined we don't care. If it's equal, all right. So if it's object and object parameter, so we'll get this if that is equal to, okay, let's name our variables better, this might get confusing. So I'll name this as params object or query object. Okay, query object, nice, much better. Query object parameter keys. I'll say param name. So let's say if I pass x equal to 1 in the URL, this will give the 1 which is passed in the URL compared with property x in this object with that value. If they are equal, then I'll say data to send equal to object. But what if we have more? In that case, we'll have to push, okay, or create an array out of this, assign it to data to send. Okay, so we'll have to do that. So I'll say filter array, filter array dot push the object, and once we are out of the filter, we'll send the response. Okay, all right. And what if we did not? Okay, and if in case prop data is not an array, the filter didn't run anything, we'll pass in the blank array. All right, so let's try this out. So x equal to 1, y equal to 2. Params is not defined. Oh, we did an error. All right, params is not defined. Where? Index.js, line number 51, 72. Line number 51 is this. Why did we use params? Ah, this should be query object. All right. Okay, so I'll stop the server, run it again, and refresh this. We get a blank array in case the parameter doesn't exist. What if, okay, and id equal to 1. Okay, id equal to 1, it didn't work. Why? In this case, I'll just console log both of these things and see what we get. I'll run again, refresh. So one, so this is yellow and this is white. Why? Okay, so by what I understand, one is a string, another is an integer. That's what I understand, or something like that. So if I do just double equals, that would only check the value. Triple equal would check the value along with the type. Okay, so either you use this, okay, uh, or then you'll have to check type of if they are a number, string, and then convert types. So for now we'll just use double equals. Let's try again. Great, we get it. Okay, now even if it's just one value, so just one result, we get an array. If you want to make it return only an object in case of uh, having just one object in the array, what we can do is then check for the length. If it's equal to 1, return the object only. We can do all that, but let's test more, like title equal to Json Server. Yes, it works. Space 2. Yes, it works. So nice, we have search working. uh Profile, sorry, profile question mark name equal to, now this is not an array. Profile is not an array, it's a object directly. Prop data dot filter is not a function. Why? Because the property data inside profile is an object. Object doesn't have the method filter. Okay, so let's say we have an object o, and o dot filter will not work. So now we need to check if it's a array or not. Okay, uh, so if length greater than 0, we do this. All right, No need for the else. We'll return a blank array in case it's not an array. Okay. Yep. All right. Comments. Let's try the multiple thing that I was talking about. What if I have two comments? Some comment to post ID 1 to 1. I'll rerun. Refresh. We have two comments, but if I try ID equal to 1, again we get 2. Yes, so our filter logic works. All right, great. So in a way our goal is reached. Yep, so you can even minimize the functions when you are debugging. What else can we do? I think this is enough. We can make this function better, optimize it. You know, the whole logic is inside create routes. So what we can do is create separate logic at least for these two lines. Okay, let's do that. So in case we have parameters, so we'll need to copy this logic, send here. So what do we need over here? We need the parameter keys. Okay, and we'll need the property data and the query object. And what we won't send the response from here, we will only return. So try to keep the functions pure. Pure functions are which might or might not take arguments, and then just do something with some data and then return a value. Okay, so just return this. Okay, we'll just return this, assign it to data to send. Okay, we'll keep a response.json over here, data to send, and we will create another function without parameters. So what does it need? Prop data and return. This is defined over here on top, so this will be available over here. Return. So yeah, this is fine. If else, return this or that. We don't need this. prop data to send. Okay, much cleaner. Yep. You can even make this a separate function like handle route. Yep. You can just copy this. We don't need an array over here. In case you want to use that, you'll have to do it like this. So where handle route equal to. In this way, it's still a function. Copy this and just put it over here. Handle route. Okay. So handle route would get again the request and the response. Okay. So you can do it like this. So functions, again, you make them smaller. They are much cleaner, easier to read. So you create routes. You see, okay, there's a loop running on the top level props and creating a route for that. So we pass in the route name and handle route. You go to the handle route. You see all these things going. We'll check if the file object is an object or not. Property name. In the comment, you can add what you're doing. So basically removing the slash. Object keys would be x comma y, so we'd know. Yeah, so you can do things like this. You can even add this inside this. Okay. And yeah, I think that this is fine. Okay, let's try and run this and see if this works. Okay, there is some error. Okay, what did we mess up? Okay, already in use. Okay, server was already running. Okay, we have one. Oh, here it's running already. Sorry about that. So let's run again. Yep, it's working. Comments id equal to 1, or let's say post id equal to 1 to 1. It works. So there you have it, a simpler version of a tool called Json Server, which mimics a simple REST API. Okay, we are even taking in the command line arguments over here. Okay, yep, so we created some functions for that purpose. Okay, make sure you define the functions on top, and then in the end you do your thing. You can even wrap this in a function, okay, like a main function, so people would know this is where your code starts, so this is the entry point of your code, maybe things like that. Okay, yeah, so I think that's it. So we understood command line arguments and created a simple tool like Json Server. So I hope you guys enjoyed this session. Thanks a lot, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.